Alright, so today we're going to be installing this blade lights kit from Peterson, snowplow light kit. I had a set on this pickup, but I just couldn't figure out what the hell was going on, so I decided I'd just get a new kit. The other lenses were pretty damaged anyway, so when you open this up, inside the kit has red and black wires, some wire nuts, looks like a 6-pin switch and some miscellaneous terminals. The lights themselves, complete with high beams, low beams, and then signals. So 2 of those, and actually that's all that's in the kit. When I ordered this, I thought it would be specific to my, this is on the same pickup that I put the gooseneck hitch on. I'm going to do a video later on this. I wound up installing the snowplow actually that you see in the video on this pickup, and I'll do a video a little bit later about, you know, how that all went down, but today we're going to be installing the lights. So as you can see, I've already removed the old lights that were on there, and this is a Western plow. So we'll go ahead and start the process of installing this. Now, like I said, I was a little disappointed that this didn't come with really any other instructions on the side of, other than what's on the side of the box here. So on the side of the box, there is kind of a schematic that tells you what to do. It's not the greatest, but so we're going to figure out what to do with this. Basically, we're going to be tapping into the feed to the lights from, I believe, the high beam, low beam switch, and then running that into our switch, which will toggle between the plow lights and the existing pickup lights. So I'm gonna go ahead and get everything unboxed, and then we'll start the process here. All right, so you can see that I got everything all mocked up here, just loosely fitted to the vehicle here. And you know, the biggest thing is just obviously making sure that it fits correctly and that your hood is going to clear. And you know, obviously this does, so that all looks good. The next thing I'm going to do is, and again, the instructions are fairly basic on this, but really the only confusing thing for me on this was the fact that you have this 6-pin switch, and I am not an electrician. But according to the instructions, basically we are just going to tap in to the high beam switch wires before, after, because it says up here 2 vehicles existing light switch and dimmer, so we would be actually tapping into that after the switch, because you'll use your existing high and low beam indicator in the pickup. This one happens to be on the floor, somewhere on the steering column in these older pickups. This is an 80. But so we'll tap into those wires and then run them to the switch, just like it indicates here on one side. The top 2 terminals over here, and then the high beams will run into these top 2 terminals over here, and then the switched part is down here on either side. One side is high beams, one side is low beams, just with the corresponding, and it's got me using the red wire for the high beams and the black wire for the low beams. So then you can see on the schematic down here as well, it basically just taps directly into the turn signals, and then I tap into the parking lights as well. So you know, those will be on regardless of the position of the 6-pin switch. But if you switch the switch, you know, obviously your plow lights will turn off and your vehicle lights will turn on for the headlamps. So that's the whole goal of this here. So basically, I think what I'm going to do first is go ahead and tap into the wiring here for the turn signals and the parking lights and get that done. And then I'm going to tackle the high beam and low beam portion of this and run wires through the firewall here and get that portion taken care of. So that's what I'm going to do next. Or first, rather. I guess another thing here that's worth mentioning is I bought some other electrical wire and stuff here just in preparation of this job, but You know, I didn't really know what I was going to need, and I'm about 40 miles out of town here, so I, you know, these quick splice connectors here are just a must with any electrical project in my mind. It makes things a lot easier. So I don't see any of those in the kit. I see these wire nuts, which I'm basically going to throw into the garbage, along with these terminals that they gave me. I don't like those as well. I don't know if these are definitely not crimp on. I don't know. I don't like them though. So I'll be using my own terminals, and actually I have these bullet style female and male connectors that I bought on my own. They did not come in the kit. So I'm going to be using these to make my connections, you know, on the front of the vehicle in case I want to take this plow assembly off. I can just quickly disconnect those rather than having a solid wire there. So I'm going to basically throw everything away here other than the on switch indicator, which just says on, which in my opinion isn't very helpful because it doesn't tell you which position is which. So basically I'm going to use the wire. I guess just another thing with this 6-position switch. So you can see on the side here that it says on. So basically when you look at the schematic, you want your live wires to be in the middle here. So like for instance, your low beams would be on this side and your high beam hot will be on this side. And then, so like for your low beams on the truck lights, you could put your truck light wire here and then your plow light wire here, and whatever position the switch is in, then it's gonna switch to one or the other. So high beams, low beams, or whichever way you want to do it, but high beams on one side, low beams on the other, truck, plow. So that's how this wires. And then if you actually look much closer, I don't know if you can see that, but these terminals are labeled, but there's no reference to any of that in the instructions here. So again, not very helpful, but fairly straightforward. But you know, I went into this, I'd never used a 6-position switch before, so that was a little intimidating for me. So. All right, so according to the schematic, we're going to be working on the left-hand side of the vehicle. It says the blue wire on the plow light kit gets connected to the left turn signal. So when I look in the Chiltons, on the left side of the vehicle here, which would be right here, so when I look at the direction signal, which is going to be this bulb right here. So direction switch light blue is what we're going to look for on the pickup, and coincidentally it's a blue wire in this kit too, so that's what we're going to look for. So coming back over to the pickup here, I got a couple of things, and I'm going to get a light here real quick. So coming back over to the vehicle here, this light fired up. So you can see in here that right down there, that's what they're talking about, this light blue wire right down here. So we're going to be tapping into that for our first connection here with the blue wire on the plow light kit. The other thing I'm going to address right away is this white, which is the ground, and just look at this chintzy little loop that they have on here. I don't really care for that, so I'm going to be replacing that, because all I'm going to do with this is just ground it to the frame right here, and I don't like how chintzy that is. I mean, just look at, I'm not impressed. So I'm going to be replacing that terminal. All right, so you can see that I've done the first wire here. So I've got the blue into the light blue, and you know, utilizing these bullet connectors like I had said. I didn't really care for the terminals that they gave me, so I elected to use my own. And you know, when you put these on, it's important to do it the right way. So you know, there's two different connectors in this bullet, of male and a female. So what you're going to want to do is make sure that your female connection that doesn't have any exposed metal on it is the one that you attach to your source power. So in the event that you disconnect this connection and this is in here rattling around, it's not going to ground out on anything. Well, this is the one that would have the power. if this became disconnected and I removed the plow lights. This I could just leave in here and it wouldn't make contact with anything because it's the female end. So it's important to know that. The other thing, and I don't know, maybe this is a little bit too much detail here, but if you don't have, you know, if you're doing a lot of these electrical projects and you don't have a wire stripper like this, I would highly recommend getting one. It makes the project just so much easier. All you do is you just take your wire and you just slip it into the top here, and it strips it so easy. So you can see that when you it makes it very easy for large projects like this. So I would recommend getting a stripper like that. They're fairly inexpensive and it just makes things so much easier because you can just go along, lay your wires in here and just strip them all really quick. The other thing is I've got one of these style crimpers, and just because of the shape of this crimper, it really holds the terminals on nicely after you complete the crimp. So you know, I do a lot of wiring projects. If you guys do a lot of wiring projects, in my opinion, these two tools are a must. So something to consider. So basically, I'm just going to go through and make the rest of these connections here. I'm going to go over to the other side, which that is going to be the light blue connector as well on the body. So I'll go ahead and make that connection, and then we'll jump on to the next section. Right, so the next thing that we're going to do here is hook up our parking lights. So, or marker lights, whatever you want to call them. So it's got the black wire coming off of both. They're gonna actually, you can tap into the same wire because it's the same thing. All they do is just turn on when the lights are on. It's your parking lights or marker lights, whatever you want to call it. So we'll hook our black wire from the lighting kit up to the brown wire on this Chevy or GMC. So you can see here, brown, marker lights, parking lights, whatever you want to call them, and it's actually that way on both sides. So brown. So I'm going to make that connection next on the pickup. And I guess one other thing. So I did say light blue on both sides for the turn signals, but it's actually light blue on the driver's side and just blue on the passenger side. So I'll take you over here and show that, but so you already saw this side. But on this side of the pickup, you know, it kind of sucked because you got this battery box to contend with, and I actually got to replace this thing. This is not in good shape, but so you can see down here, we tapped into this blue wire right here and connected it to the kit. So next, I will address and I just realized that I said black, but there isn't a black here. So I wonder what that's all about. I gotta go back and look at the book. Not really impressed with the schematic on this thing. I mean, when you look at this, it looks like it's got you hooking the black wire up there. I don't know. Red, green, black, white, and blue is what I see. So I'm taking a look. Through a process of elimination and using some alligator clips here, I determined that the yellow wire here, in fact, is the marker light wire on both sides. Although, once again, when we go back to our diagram on the side of the packaging, either I am colorblind or something, but when I look at this connection, that sure as hell looks like a black wire to me. So, way to go, kit. So I'm gonna go ahead and make that connection next. All right, so I've made my connections, and like I said, the plow lights turn on with the vehicle running lights or parking lights or marker lights or whatever you want to call them. And I can see that I've got some sort of a loose connection here or something on the pickup. Oh, there. So something's funny with this connection here, but I don't exactly know what's going on there, but you can see that the plow lights are working, so I'll figure that out later. And I guess just one other thing here, I did elect to use what was already on there. for the ground. So it while it's chintzy, I guess I'll give it a whirl here and see what happens. But it's pretty protected inside the cab or the hood here. I was gonna mount it to the outside of the bracket, but that didn't make any sense. I just fed my wires through the radiator support unit here, and I'll keep everything protected under the hood. Makes more sense to me. So I'm gonna go ahead and make the rest of the connections here. I'm gonna start tackling that switch next, I think. So we'll probably move into the pickup. All right, so trying to isolate everything down here, and somebody has actually installed a switch harness here. I don't know, probably something got a little wet, and probably over the years just had bad contact here or something, so they switched this, and the colors don't necessarily correspond with what's in the Chilton. So I took this apart, and you know, using a tester here, one of the things when you use one of these testers is make sure that you've got a good ground and that it actually works prior to using this thing. So I always like to go in here and find a constant power source and just make sure that my test light actually works before I start trying to test stuff and getting frustrated because I don't have a good ground. So what I did to isolate this was I pulled the you know, the light switch on, so the lights are on, set it so that my brights are on, and I pulled this harness off, and I figured out that this top terminal here, there's a top terminal and then two bottom terminals here on this switch. So what I did was I determined that this top terminal here, you can see that the light comes on, that's actually the feed for the lights. And then the bottom two pins are actually for bright and dim. So the colors didn't necessarily correspond, but like I say, this top one is the yellow wire. I know that's my feed because I've tested it. I've got my bright lights on right now if I go to the bottom. And I know that the green wire is for my brights. So through a process of elimination, then the brown is obviously for the dims. So what I'm gonna do is, like I said before, we want to tap into that, actually not tap into it, we want to cut that wire after the switch. So what I'm going to do is so this yellow here was my feed, this green is bright, and then the tan is dim. So I'm going to cut this green wire, and I'm going to run it into my switch, which I'm going to mount probably down here somewhere. So I'm going to do that phase next. All right, so I've got most of this, in fact, everything on the vehicle side here done already. I'll show you what we got. So the black represents the low beams, and you can see down here where all I did was I just spliced where it came into the switch and where it goes out to the, or I'm sorry, so after the switch, spliced it, brought it into the plow light switch, which are these middle terminals here. So these are the feeds from the light, bright and dim. And then on the lower side here, or whichever you have this orientated, upper, lower, whatever, I have the leads that actually go back out here and are tapped into the green and tan wires that are part of the vehicle's existing wiring. So I'll show you here, when we turn our lights on, you can see right now that I have only the marker lights, and I've actually fixed this side here. So only the marker lights are on. And that's because right now this switch is running what would be the plow lights. So if we take our switch, and you can see how this is orientated, when the switch is down, it opens this circuit. When the switch is up, it's going to switch to what's down here, which now you can see that my headlights are on. So this wasn't too bad of a setup here. So you can see that the pickup lights are on right now, and they're actually the brights. So let's hit the dimmer switch, factory dimmer switch here. This lighting is something to be desired. I apologize for that. So we'll just hit our dimmer switch, and you can see that the low beams are on now. So the next step is going to be to run wires that are going to tap into these terminals here out to the plow lights. So one of these terminals, you know, so on the black side here, that's going to be our dim, and that'll feed actually both front plow lights. This side over here on the red is going to be our bright, and that's going to feed both plow lights. So essentially I need to run one wire off of each of these through the firewall and then attach them to, you know, so the red, for instance, will attach to the red here, I assume, and then the black will attach to the green, and then that'll, you know, on both sides. So I'm going to do that. I made all the connections so you can see again. You got your feed wire that comes into the middle here, and then you know, on one side of this switch is your brights, the other side is your dims, which is represented by the white or the black and red. And then on the top of the switch, you have your either your vehicle or your plow lights. So it's one or the other. So as you can see, we'll go ahead and turn on the lights. And what I have on here right now is, so actually the plow lights are working. I think those might actually be the brights. Okay, I guess not. So we'll hit the dimmer. And you can see that it's switched from bright to dim. We'll hit the toggle switch for the truck lights, which I haven't mounted yet. I'm gonna drill a hole probably right up in here so it's out of the way. I mean, this isn't gonna be switched that many times. So I've switched that now. Now we're back over to the pickup lights, which you can see the marker lights still stay on with the plow set. We'll hit the dimmer. And we also have dim lights on the pickup. So one of the things was, you know, when you're, like I said, I gotta drill that hole and mount that switch yet, but I'll tuck that up here nicely. One of the things that was not included in the kit was this conduit here that I put on. I didn't really like the fact that I'd have, you know, 6 wires bouncing around in here underneath the carpeting and stuff, so I figured I'd protect that a little bit and put my own conduit on there. I didn't use the crimp-on connections from the kit just because they looked awful chintzy to me, and I just, you know, the only time that you actually have a problem with this is going to be in the worst conditions imaginable. So if you take a little bit extra time right now and do it a little bit better, you won't have to worry about doing this in 20 below temperatures when you really need it. Another thing, you know, when you're under here, just try and use some of the existing conduit. Like there's this piece here that runs across the front of the vehicle. I tapped into that to go over to the other side. You know, just make sure this stuff is tucked away kind of neatly. I'm probably going to conduit some of that too. Then I'm actually going to take some different color zip ties so that it corresponds with these wires here if I ever have to take these bullet connectors apart if I want to take this plow off of this pickup, which would be highly unlikely, but still good to have that option. So hope you enjoyed the video. Good luck with your installation. You know, like I said, I was a little bit intimidated by this right away, but you know, it's not too bad once you get in here. I will say though that I am not too impressed with the instructions on the Peterson kit here. Like I said, a lot of the colors and stuff here didn't even line up, and then some of the parts that they gave you were just subpar in my mind. If you do not have a Chilton book for your pickup, I would highly recommend getting one. There's a lot of useful information in these. Just, you know, these electrical diagrams alone are just phenomenal that they give you. So good luck. Have a good day.